We're here in the Pacific Ocean to welcome you to the center of the United States of America. Surprised? So was I. Although, depending on how you're measuring, the center could also be in a European country. If that seems confusing, join me as I work toward finding the true center of the United States. Our search begins with a discussion of the two cities currently claiming to be the center of the United States. Welcome to Lebanon. No, not that Lebanon. And probably not one of the other surprisingly numerous cities named Lebanon in the United States that you could be thinking of. Welcome to Lebanon, Kansas, center of the United States, or at least the 48 contiguous United States, according to a study in 1918 by the United States Coast and Geodetic Survey. The center isn't actually in Lebanon, as the marker is about 2 miles outside of town. And even that isn't the center because the actual location is on private property, so the historical marker is placed about half a mile away. You can enjoy a picnic in a nearby pavilion, or possibly hold a very small wedding in the on-site chapel. If you're going to visit, be sure to watch out for Kansas traffic jams, such as this one, on your way there. You'll know you're in Lebanon when you see multiple signs reminding you of that fact. Lebanon served as the overall geographic center of the United States for 47 years, until the admissions of Alaska and Hawaii moved the geographic center of the overall United States approximately 550 miles north-northwest to an uninhabited parcel of private pasture land in South Dakota, near its border with Wyoming and Montana. Welcome to Belle Fourche, South Dakota.
Belle Fourche.
Excuse me, Belle Fourche, South Dakota. Yet another marker was erected, arguably a little fancier this time around, about 20 miles away from the actual location. While you're in town, be sure to also visit the Tri-State Museum. And this is where our story begins. If you look at a map of the lower 48 states, it would be reasonable to guess that the center was somewhere near the Kansas-Nebraska state line, so Lebanon as a center makes sense. Given how far north Alaska goes, it made sense for the center of the 50 states to move north as well, in spite of how far south Hawaii is. However, with how far west Alaska goes, past the 180th meridian or anti-meridian, which is over 4,500 miles away, it seemed difficult for me to believe that the center of the United States only shifted a few hundred miles to the west. If anything, it seems the center should be along the west coast. So I got to looking at the method of measurement used to find these past center points and found the following. The United States Coast and Geodetic Survey found this location by balancing on a point a cardboard cutout shaped like the US. This method was accurate to within 20 miles. So they found the center by balancing a cardboard cutout? Did they hire a Harlem Globetrotter to do the balancing? Actually, that sounds pretty cool, but hardly scientific. This center does not feel right to me. Sorry, South Dakota, you can have Mount Rushmore, but you cannot have the center of the United States. Why try to find a center point by balancing land masses like spinning plates, when we can calculate the center point with math, using latitudes and longitudes? Using math, we have 3 possible centers for the United States, depending on which variables we use. Our first center will be found by averaging the coordinates of the extremes of north, east, south, and west. The easternmost point of the United States is commonly said to be West Quoddy Head Lighthouse in Maine. Something fun you can do when you are feeling bored and have no social life is to right-click on a location in Google Maps. Doing so allows you to get a latitude and longitude reading, which we will use to make our calculations. All locations and calculations I will be using can be found in the description below. To the far south, we have Kalae, Hawaii, home to some beautiful cliffs overlooking the ocean. To the west, we have Attu Island, Alaska, which is so far west, it's actually in the eastern hemisphere. Remember that, it's going to come up again later. Interestingly, the island is both a national wildlife refuge and the site of the only land battle fought on North American soil during World War II. Finally, to the north, we stay in Alaska, but move to Point Barrow, northeast of the town of Utqiagvik.
Utqiagvik.
Utqiagvik?
Uttervik.
Okay, the town formerly known as Barrow. If we use these four extremes and find the mean average of their latitudes and longitudes, we end up with a point in the Pacific Ocean. While it is in international waters, we could perhaps put a buoy out to mark the location. As such, I asked an AI program to create some sample designs. Some of these buoys I like better than others, but any one of them could probably do the job. Still, it's going to be difficult for anyone to visit this location, so it would be better if we could put a marker on land. If we travel directly east, we hit the northern peninsula of Grays Harbor in Washington State. There's a golf course there and several homes, but not really a place to build a marker. However, if we're willing to travel a few miles to the southern peninsula of this bay, I think Westport Light State Park presents an excellent option for establishing a marker. It has a lighthouse that I think would be a great option for building a marker nearby. At this point, we just need Washington State Parks and Recreation Commission to get on board with building a monument with an arrow pointing 660 miles to the west. Here are some AI-generated images for such a monument. I'm not sure how realistic the building on the cliffside is, which doesn't even include an arrow, but it looks impressive. If Washington is willing, I think this could work as the center of the United States. With that being said, it could be argued that it's not very fair to find the center location using this method, since so many of these locations are weighted to the west. Which brings us to make things fairer, we're going to create something called a bounding box, so that all locations of the United States fall within it. To do this, we take our far west point and combine it with our far north point, and so on and so forth until we have a rectangle. This moves our northwest point into the East Siberian Sea, our southwest point into the Pacific Ocean, our southeast point into the Atlantic Ocean, and our northeast point into the Davis Strait. Welcome to the United States of America. Now that we have the bounding box created, we just need to calculate the center of that rectangle. Before I show you where the center is, in the interest of full disclosure, I want it known that I was really hoping one of these center points would be in Canada, especially if it was near something super Canadian like a Tim Hortons, because what could be more American than taking something created by another nation and claiming it as our own? We've done it to Canada so many times with peanut butter, Hawaiian pizza, Ryan Reynolds, and in most years, the Stanley Cup. Alas, my dreams are not to be. The center of this bounding box is in the Pacific Ocean. Again. However, as luck would have it, this location is closer to land, as we're now only 160 miles west of what appears to be a residential beach area in Oregon State. Well, that's not exactly ideal. If we go north just 2 miles, we come to Bob Straub State Park in Pacific City, which presents another ideal place to install a marker for the center of the United States. We just need to get Oregon Parks and Recreation Department on board with the proposal. For these Oregon-based monuments, I'm not sure why the AI thought a wood marker was a good idea around saltwater, but it probably is the most affordable of all these options. The red arrow thing kinda looks cool though. However, we're not done yet. As I mentioned earlier, Attu Island, Alaska is actually in the Eastern Hemisphere, so Alaska is not just the farthest west state, it is also the farthest east state. Sorry, Maine, you're getting kicked out of these calculations. Using the 180th meridian, or anti-meridian, as our divider, the true easternmost point of the United States is an uninhabited island home to an active volcano. Welcome to Semispochnoi Island.
Semispochnoi.
I've heard it both ways.
To create a proper bounding box, we need to find the furthest west point we can without crossing 180 degrees longitude. This puts us at Amatignak Island, another uninhabited island in Alaska. Not only is it the westernmost longitude in Alaska, the United States, and North America, but it is also the southernmost point of Alaska. For our bounding box, we'll need to go west from our easternmost point and east from our westernmost point. Admittedly, this bounding box is huge, as it now circles almost the entire globe, minus this single strip of about 1 degree of longitude along the antimeridian. However, it does offer us the opportunity to find a land-based option for placing a marker for the center of the United States. After running the calculations one more time, our latitude remains the same, but our longitude places us in a forest, just north of the small town of Saint-André-de-Double.
Saint-André-de-Double.
Saint-André-de-Double in southwestern France. Admittedly, this is not as exciting as I had hoped for, as I was really hoping to find a castle.
Guys, I want a castle.
However, it does seem fitting. After all, the center in Lebanon, Kansas is home to a small town of under 200 people, just like this small French town. Each has a nice church you can enter while visiting the center of the United States. France did donate the Statue of Liberty to the United States, and they did help with our Revolutionary War, so it almost feels right that the center of the United States should be found in France. Hopefully once they see this video, the good people of France can be persuaded to add a plaque or some other marker, whether in those woods or in the middle of town. These AI-generated options look fairly nice, but I'm not locked into any one of these. To be clear, they're just ideas. If the French are willing to build a marker of some kind, they are more than welcome to choose for themselves what fits best in their community. Maybe one day, if this video ever goes viral, Washington, Oregon, or France may take an interest in building a monument for one of these centers of the United States. But until then, you can take comfort in knowing you are one of the few that know the real center of the United States is in the ocean, or Europe.